welcome to another episode of Senshi Khan's Cosplay Myths podcast. I'm Rebecca, and this is my co-host, Deborah.
Hey!
Hey! So, welcome back, and just a word of warning, this is a pre-recorded episode, so we will not be able to answer questions live. However, we're always looking to answer questions, so if you have any, feel free to leave a comment or send Deborah an email at her email address. It should be in the comments. Yep. So today's episode is all about steampunk. Now, first off, a lot of you may know what steampunk is, but for those of you who do not, Deborah, what is steampunk?
Yeah, so steampunk is actually a subgenre of sci-fi where it follows along during the Victorian era of steam-powered machinery and I can't think straight. I'm sorry. It's a Monday for us on this recording. But yeah, so it's a subgenre, historical setting, typically features steam-powered machinery rather than advanced technology. Now, in some of the steampunk, there is some advanced technology like ray guns, more advanced like tasers, and then as well as prosthetics. But the fashion tends to center around Victorian as well. So very similar to Lolita, but this one tends to stay more true to the Victorian style.
But more heavy on the leather.
Yes, a lot of leather. You got your leather boots, your leather gloves, your leather corsets, your hats, goggles. Goggles are a really big thing in steampunk fashion. And I know that's one question I always see people ask, like, why does all the steampunkers wear goggles? Well, if you think about it, steampunk, it's going to be based around steam technology. So most people are going to be wearing goggles to protect their eyes because most of them are dealing, again, with steam technology. So you're going to need something to cover those eyes to protect you from, the steam.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But also they're just a cool accessory. So,
Very cool. And I've seen in a lot of steampunk themed things, they'll have magnifying glasses so that you can magnify in on whatever you're working on. I've always viewed steampunk as okay, so you've got Victorian, you've got mad scientists, be as creative and strange as you want, because anything on your cosplay, you can just say, this is my invention, blah, blah, it does this. Would you like me to demonstrate?
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's one of my favorites. My first ever, so we had a steamposium up here once. I know they still go on sometimes. I don't know if they're going to hold one anytime soon again, but there was this one person, they had a dog with them, and they actually dressed the dog up in a steampunk fashion. So he had this vest, and they actually designed the vest that had wings on it, and the dog had goggles on his head, and just the sweetest little dog, honestly. I loved it. But a great example of, being creative is you get to do so much with steampunk because, well, yes, it's not really limiting. The most limiting is that you got to stay within the Victorian era style-wise. But Victorian still has a good variety of styles there. And you're not limited. Women aren't limited to skirts. Victorian era, despite popular belief, is they still wore pants.
Yeah.
So, they had the bloomers. I don't know what the other ones are called, but your basic, A-line pants. So, if you're concerned, oh, I don't want to do it because I have to wear a skirt. And she's like, nah, dude. Also, again, hey, if you want to dress more masculine, do it.
Yeah. And I think I have seen steampunk where they did a really frilly top and then more practical, really practical leather pants into leather boots, just because it's I get to be really frilly on the top, but then I need to be practical around the pants area because I'm working around machinery. So you're going, okay, I'm going to be Victorian, but I'm also working around a lot of machinery, so I can kind of play with that. I've also seen steampunks where they have gone with shorter skirts instead of the full length gown. It's nope, they went, we're just going to have this little fluffy thing in the back that's this huge ribbon and looks like partial petticoats. I have no idea how to describe this, but it's like a really fluffy and just like ribbons and fluff in the back, and then kind of more with like leather vest, puffy shirt. I don't. I think it was there was somewhat of a skirt in front, but it was more like pants themed.
Okay. Yeah, I do know. Yeah, so there is that. There's also I did this one time, and it's also another very popular style to do with Victorian. So like say you do want to wear a gown, but you're concerned like later, like, oh, there's gonna be a lot of moving around, so this skirt's gonna get in the way. Well, one of the popular styles is what's called a bustle, is where you can actually you have like a ribbon or even like an under leather like strap to where you pull the skirt up and then actually bunch it. And some people just clip it, or again, the ribbon, if you pull it, it'll scrunch it by itself. So it lifts the front for you. So you've got this really cute, like bustle look. So it's gathered in the front, drapes in the back, or even some people do it where you bustle the entire skirt. So you just have this like, I think kind of like Belle, like her dress. You see the layers, but obviously a little bit more bunched up together.
And I think that might have been like something really similar to what I saw. Like they took that idea and that's just the mode I saw them in. But either way, steampunk, I feel like you could get really creative.
Oh, and yeah.
Cosplayers are creative anyways. So give them steampunk and it's just kind of like, well,
yeah,
this person went left, this person went right, and both went to steampunk.
Yes. No, I definitely think steampunkers are a whole other level. Like I got the chance to see some like really hardcore steampunkers. Like they just went the full 9 yards, and it's amazing to see because think of like seeing like a professional cosplayer and that amount of detail that they put into their cosplay. It's the same thing with their steampunk outfits. It's admirable. It's awestruck. I know one of the guys actually he sometimes sells like leather goods at Senshi Con. He does steampunk and he does like he'll do like the full outfit sometimes, and I always see him and I'm just like, dang.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. They gosh, I don't even I'm like, I know I've seen them and I'm drawing a blank on their name.
Yeah. Yes, I know. Yeah, I see him like almost every year, and I see him around at different places, selling his stuff, and he's got really high quality not gear, merchandise, and a lot of it is steampunk inspired, and I love it. I bought a pocket watch from him, like 5-6 years ago, and it still works pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah. Definitely, and he's great to talk with. Like he'll nerd out with you for sure. So
nice.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were going to say something?
Oh no! But speaking of examples, if you're not quite sure what steampunk looks like, great places to look are towards the movies. And Deborah made a lovely list of various movies. That you can actually see like the idea of steampunk, where you've got advanced technology but old style clothing, which is actually kind of like the best way of describing steampunk.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So there are various films. Oh yes, League of Legends.
I'm
doing great. So, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. There we go.
Yes.
It is very good, but you definitely there is Nemo, Captain Nemo with his submarine. So, I mean, if you want to talk about technology way ahead of its time in old time clothing, this pretty much fits the bill.
Yes, and I thought it was such a good classic old movie. Like this is a very old movie. It's something I watched back when I was a kid, and it's a fantastic movie, and it gives you a great example of there's definitely steampunk elements. Now, well, one thing I should recommend say with these movies is they're not 100% steampunk. There's elements of steampunk in them, but they're not like true, like 100% representations of it. They just kind of give you idea because there's definitely some things you take from inspiration, especially costume design wise. But yeah, these movies will give you a good idea for steampunk generally.
Yeah. And the kind of the mentality you should have of like, yes, I have this advanced technology, but I am very much a Victorian professor or lady or duchess, so on and so forth. Because the views are the values are still whatever are still old time.
For sure. Yeah. Also, you got to think of like, especially back then, what's your social status? You know, are you a peasant? Are you a noble? And that will influence how you're going to dress for sure. Mm-hmm. Obviously, this time of year, like you don't have to worry about like materials as much, unless you're going like 100% authentic. But even then, they used a lot of materials. Even peasants used a lot of materials that were technically considered exotic because some were able to get their hands on it, or the market, so on and so forth.
Yep. Or they just got some scrap somewhere and, well, hey, mine.
Yeah, that too.
Oh, Mortal Engines is another example, but instead of going into the past, it's more like a post-apocalyptic clothing / hairstyle.
Yeah. So this one definitely, there's a lot of Victorian aspects in it. And sci-fi does, one of the genres for steampunk is post-apocalyptic. My turn to mess up here. Post-apocalyptic. You know what? Apocalyptic. Thank you.
There we go.
I swear, I'm sober, I promise. I've only been drinking tea here. There's nothing in it. Like, there was some honey. But yeah, Mortal Engines, it definitely falls along more of the post-apocalyptic and a little bit like the Victorian era. So you kind of get a little bit of that because a lot of these steampunk sci-fi does tend to follow along the post-apocalyptic timeline. So this one definitely kind of gives you a little bit more of a genre there.
Yep.
And it's a fairly interesting movie. I only saw like the tail end of it, but still pretty good.
Batman Gotham by Gaslight.
Yes, I haven't seen this one yet. I have seen photos, I have seen reviews, and I've heard it's amazing. But this one's definitely like, so if you want to do like a superhero steampunk, this is a good example because I've seen people who take superheroes and turn them steampunk. I did that with Ruby like way back when. So animation called Ruby with Rooster Teeth. I did a steampunk Yang. This was like 8 years ago as well. But I did that way back when, and so it's actually not so like if you want to do a superhero but you want to do steampunk, mesh the two. It's you're not limited by it at all, and this is a good example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you can see the woman in the background with the top hat, and yet the very like it looks like she's wearing a very like the top part looks very Victorian dress.
Yeah, so she's wearing a bustier, I believe is what it's called. So it's an over the bust corset, and then it's actually usually like a jacket type thing there. It looks like, which very Victorian era-esque.
Yep.
And then next slide we have. Dun, 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 dun.
Yay, Treasure Planet!
Everyone's favorite. So this one. This falls way more into the storyline of sci-fi, but it still has, again, the Victorian aspect. That's why we decided to include it. It's not super, super steampunk, but it still classifies almost as steampunk.
Yeah, because you do have, you've got ships, but they fly in the sky. But the ships look very old time. You've got the clothing that could very much be like, this is the clothing they would wear during the Victorian era. It's been updated a little bit, but like if you're trying to find like how would a commoner dress or a low class merchant or a Navy person dress in like Victorian steampunk, this is probably I would think this is a great example. Especially if you're trying to mix old time clothing with very modern machinery.
Yeah, well, this is obviously beyond modern for us.
Oh, yeah.
Wish ships were a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, Treasure Planet, I mean, like, such an underrated movie. I miss this movie.
Yes.
But yeah, this one definitely focuses more on the fantasy aspect, storyline, even some like technology and clothing, even. But there's still like, again, those aspects you see, and so it's definitely something I recommend.
Yeah. There's a lot of things out there that have been inspired by the idea of steampunk and thus carried forward.
Yeah.
Which is where like half the fun comes from.
Oh, yeah. The next one here is Steam Boy. That one's definitely it's inspired a lot. This animation actually takes place in the Victorian era, so you actually get to see it, and you get to see the steam powered. You actually get to see quite a few outfits that have been inspired by steampunk, even. So this movie, I definitely recommend checking out as well. I mean, I recommend all of these movies because they're all pretty good movies, honestly.
Yes.
But yeah, this one definitely falls along more of the technological side rather than the fashion. You don't see a whole lot of diverse fashion in this, but it still gives you like an idea, like technology wise,
what to expect, what that should happen, and kind of follow along that.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, if one was to do steampunk and they wanted to cosplay that, what are like, okay, is there like a checklist, or is there like a kind of an idea of, oh, you will automatically be doing steampunk? Oh, that's a cute little puppy.
Is that a doggo?
That is a doggo.
Oh my gosh, he's wearing a bomber jacket.
Oh, that's adorable. Watch us get distracted. Nice.
I choose a different dog. But this I haven't seen this one. No, there was this. I don't think you were at the Steamposium that year, Casey, or I don't know, but yeah, it was a different dog, but
yeah,
still a good dog.
Yes. For those of us who heard the disembodied voice, that was Casey, our tactician behind the scenes, and you might have seen him in a previous episode where he was talking to us about photography.
Yes. So everyone say hi to Casey.
Hi, Casey! But yeah. So, as I was saying before we got
sidetracked
by the good boy.
Best boy.
Best boy, yes. Like, is there a checklist or something like you are not doing steampunk if you do not have these items in your cosplay?
I would say honestly, probably adding I'm not like a forefront like expert on steampunk. I've only ever done it twice. Mm-hmm. And those were like just experiments when I was first starting out with cosplay, actually. But definitely sticking to the Victorian era. One of the big things is like adding gears or copper kind of things to your costume. So that's a huge thing. People like to add again like little like copper gears to their outfits, whether it be accessories or a design on the outfit itself, even. So that definitely tends to be more falls along the lines of your steampunk. So if you're just going, wearing a Victorian outfit without gears, it feels incomplete for me. I could very well be wrong. I'm not an expert on steampunk fashion. It is something I admire from the distance. Would love to get into it one day, but again, it's not a cheap or easy thing to get into. But then again, neither is cosplay. So,
but yeah. So if anyone in our audience who knows more about steampunk has any suggestions, any go to, if you're doing steampunk, don't forget this, this, and this. We'd love to hear from you. Please leave us a comment or send an email, whichever one you feel most comfortable with, because we're still learning about all this, especially me. I'm literally half the time going through this going, I learned something new.
Yeah, I think you tend to rely like on the whatever notes I add before we do the videos and whatnot.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of that.
Yeah. This one we don't have too much information, unfortunately, because there's I don't want to say like steampunk's a complicated topic, but it's a complicated topic if you haven't really gotten into the community and whatnot. And it's a shame that here in Alaska we don't have a very big steampunk community. So it's kind of hard to find the people who are really into it. I've only met, again, like the one seller that I was telling you about. He's about the only one that I know off the top of my head that, really likes steampunk, is super into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But such is the joys of, being in Alaska. So.
But yeah, no, it's like if anyone knows about groups out there or people who are looking for groups, start dropping a line, start talking to each other, because steampunk is awesome. It's so much fun to see. I know at SenshiCon a few years ago there was a couple of individuals. I think they were together, but I'm not sure. But they both had very steampunk-like cosplays, and they were I believe they were in the 2019 walk-on, and one of them walked on, and they had a functioning pair of wings. Like it had little wire wings that were wire with cloth, and they could move it, and it moved, and it was just like, that is amazing.
I think I remember them. That sounds really familiar.
Yeah.
Oh no, I can't remember.
Yeah, no. Like anyone who's got some engineering capabilities, steampunk might be your thing, because it's like, make this thing move and be robotic.
Yes.
With gears, and you're just basically doing all that with Victorian stuff.
I mean, I've even seen some cosplayer take Nerf guns and design them to be the more steampunk kind of design for guns and whatnot, which is really cool to see. Obviously, you gotta be careful when you're doing toy guns and whatnot, because you never know what the convention rules are going to be.
Yes,
but it's still really cool to see. Some of my favorites is what body paint artists can do. I've seen them, like, they'll paint their arm and do, like it looks like a prosthetic. It'll look like a prosthetic arm, and I've seen that. Like, it takes hours, and I'm just like, it's always great to see.
Yes. Yeah. One thing I did want to talk about, since currently as we're recording this, the lower 48 have like, at least the Washington area, from what I hear, it's very warm right now. And Canada had like a record-breaking temperature someplace. So like, one of the things is steampunk involves a lot of metal and a lot of leather. So if it's very hot, please be wary, because metal heats up, but metal also freezes. So in the colder temperatures, also be careful, because if you're wearing a lot of metal and it gets cold, you're going to be cold. If it gets really hot, it just, ow. Yeah. I'm sure anyone from the lower 48 who's watching this will understand more so than us Alaskans what I'm talking about.
Now, the most experience we've had with that kind of heat was 2019 during like the 4th of July. It got to like 100 degrees.
Did it get?
And that was, I believe, like some parts of Alaska it hit 100 degrees. Well, at least here in Anchorage it did. I know Fairbanks it hit like 104, 110.
Ridiculously hot temperatures. Just like we melted.
Yeah. I know for you guys in lower 48, that's probably laughable. One thing you got to remember here with Alaska, though, we don't have AC, guys. There's no AC. We're not prepped. Yeah. So we're not prepped for hot. Like once it hits 70, like we generally start melting. It's just like, ugh.
Yep. No, with the little puddles of goo. Like y'all come up here and you're wearing your coats at 60 and 50, and we're all wandering around in our shorts and
Tank
t-shirts
top.
and going, what on earth are you wearing and why?
That is, I think that is the running joke with Alaskans, though, in the lower 48 folks, is you can tell who's the tourist and who's the Alaskan is via what are you wearing when it's 60 degrees outside.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Yeah, no, that it does bring up, it actually kind of goes back to a previous episode we did about weather and cosplay, is be careful of the leather, be careful of the metal, because those things will have an effect.
Yeah.
And if you have any mechanics that are supposed to move and things get hot or cold, metal does shrink and expand, so things may not work properly.
Yeah, so definitely take care. One other thing to keep in mind is if you're going for if you're trying to do like a authentic Victorian outfits tend to wear a lot of layers. I can think one outfit just off the top of my head, 3 to 4 layers for a basic outfit for a woman, or a more feminine costume. And then same guys, I think generally tends to stick more like 2 to 3 layers. But it again depends on like the complexity of the outfit itself, because I know some guys can get to 5 to 6 layers as well. So definitely, yeah. So definitely just keep that in mind. You know, obviously you're gonna want to probably cosplay during a cooler season like spring or fall. I don't know how that is in some states. Here, fall would probably be the more ideal for that.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's something always to consider is the weather. But
For sure.
you know, in a way, you could almost take that as a challenge. Cosplay steampunk in the heat and make yourself a portable little air conditioner or something. I mean, you're supposed to be like this scientist with the mumbo jumbo machinery. Do something.
True.
No.
No, I could not. Could not. Like if it's a cloudy day like this weekend's been, because it's been kind of rainy all week, or I guess technically last week since it's a new week right now. But like that time frame, I could probably do it. But once the sun comes out, no, I'm gonna turn into a puddle. No. I am whiter than a ghost for a reason.
Yep. But yeah, no, that's Alaskans in general, I think. A lot. Yeah. There are some Alaskans who like the heat, but most of us not so much. It gets to a certain point and then we're just like, so how do we turn off the sun again?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then once, we're 4 months into winter, we're just like, please turn the heat back on.
Yeah, that's us.
For sure. All right, y'all. I think that's about all we've got for you tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Thanks for listening to us ramble on about being an Alaskan in the heat.
And some rambling about steampunk as well. And favorite movies that we liked.
Yes.
But if you have any questions, feel free to leave us a comment or drop an email into Deborah's email, which you can find in the comments. Also, remember, our next episode is going to be about cosplay stories and horror stories. And it can literally be anything from, like, this thing malfunctioned in the worst possible moment to, this was the best cosplay experience ever! We want all the stories. Any story you've got. Feel free to leave us a note.
Yeah. I love hearing your guys' stories, and then I'll be sharing a couple of my own as well. So we'll share in the embarrassment here. So, we'll get going. But yeah, definitely hit me up, guys.
Yep. All right. Thanks again for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye.